Hello everyone, let's make a video. My name is Scott Wilhite, and this channel is for the purpose of fixing RMA. Not going to go into a lot of details about what RMA is, but I've got other videos on this channel that explain more details. That's a bug zapper, sorry. It'll go off, I'm in a workshop. So RMA is rate myth acceptance, and it's something that researchers use in order to identify how many people believe that a male could be raped by a female. I was a victim of that in 2006 in the most bizarre way imaginable. I'll tell you that it happens, and I'm now retired, and I've got a story to tell about it. The perpetrator was a female named Dusty Broadfoot. She got away with it for a myriad of reasons, but and she has a daughter whose name is Reagan Corsi. She is a social media influencer with 4 million followers. So even though this story I've been telling is not new, I did just start the channel up after retiring. By the way, the other sound is my dog. Sorry, it's raining. He freaks out. He freaks out over anything. But Reagan Corsi is a perfect little kid, was a perfect little kid when I lived with her. So she's saying very bad, very mean things about me. I don't care about that, and would tell you that she's not, I don't have any animosity towards her. Her mother's got a problem. And I'm going to talk about her because this is my story, and she's the one who perpetrated these crimes, and they involve high school students. And although the channel is pretty new, and I'm still kind of catching up to being able to talk good, like people who talk good. Some of the videos I make may be a little choppy, and I apologize for that. I promise. I appreciate the subscribers and anybody who views any of the videos now. But if you subscribe, then I'm never going to ask for money, and hopefully at some point I get better. So tonight I'm going to try and make it short. I'm going to talk about, first, what Dusty Broadfoot did in 2006 were basically freak-offs that we're hearing about in the P-Diddy trial, but much worse. P-Diddy's weren't motivated by hate. What Dusty did was. And when I first found out what happened back in 2007, what Dusty did, if I said I freaked out, that would be an overstatement. It knocked the wind out of me. I was sitting about 10 feet, 14 feet over there when I found out in a very weird way. The story is very weird, very interesting anyway. The problem with RMA and not believing that a male can be raped by a female is the cause. So I'm trying to take that interesting story, horrifying, interesting, unique story, and use it as part of the utility to overcome the intolerances that people like me suffer, whether it's whether it's from law enforcement or just people in general, and fix that. And tonight I'm going to compare what Dusty did, literally, with a scene in a movie from in the late 90s. It was called, or in the 90s, it was called Boogie Nights with Mark Walberg. I'm that old. And it's pretty terrifying how close it was. I've known the similarities existed since I've discovered what Dusty did. But nevertheless, that movie was about a porn star named Dirk Diggler. If you hadn't seen it, it was about a kind of a fake porn star, Dirk Diggler. He worked for Burt Reynolds, who played a porn star producer. And Walberg was pretty young then, and he played a young character. And he was straight, but apparently he got addicted to drugs and lost his job. So in order to get money, quick money, it's a dark movie. In order to get money quickly, he decides to go hook up with another guy in a gay part of town. I think the movie really doesn't say this, so I don't know if the guy that drove up and engaged with him, who committed a hate crime against him, I guess a female could have driven up. and asked to have sex with Walberg. I hadn't thought about that until just now. But anyway, he goes out to prostitute himself in the 70s, and a little truck drives up. And this is the picture of the guy driving the truck. That's from the movie. And that guy driving the truck is a bigoted hillbilly redneck, right? And if you know the movie. But Walberg gets in. It's a mini truck. It was a Datsun or something with a real small cab. And they're really close together. And the guy driving the truck makes Walberg believe that the guy driving the truck wants to do some sex act with him. And they negotiate that up front. They talk about it up front. And in a sense, that part is sort of consensual. Now, it is an act of prostitution, and that part's legal. This is a thought experiment. So for this, the prostitution, you have to take that part out in order for it to try to erase some of the implicit bias that comes along with, well, they're doing it crime anyway. If a female prostitute jumps in the cab of a 18-wheeler and is assaulted, then police are still going to respond to whatever assault happens with the female prostitute. Well, this happens to be Mark Walberg, who's a straight male. And he gets in the truck and the guy says, hey, let's do some sex thing and I'll pay you. Mark Walberg says, well, you know I'm straight. And the other guy says, well, it doesn't matter. And they negotiate what they're going to do. And the guy says, I want you to masturbate in front of me. The guy driving the truck says that to Walberg. And the scene is, the implication is, these are two, Walberg says outright, I'm not homosexual, but he's still willing to do this act for some money. And the guy says, that's okay, but it's going to be, there were two guys, and he said, I want you to masturbate in front of me, and I may join in later. It's a very creepy scene. The score for it is perfect. It's, the For Whom the Bell Tolls, the slow bells ringing every so often. So it's evil manifested in this scene, is the point. I'm trying to kind of institutionalize the description of it, but for anybody who's seen it, we're working up to a very bad scene. And so Walberg he says, okay, and starts doing that. And the guy that driving the truck acts like he's into it, kind of pretend his facial expression is kind of, he's biting his lip or he's doing whatever, somebody would do, as if they're kind of getting worked up sexually, watching Walberg. Well, a part that doesn't matter in the comparison happens, that's more for the movie. Walberg can't sort of finish the act that he's doing, and he gets upset with himself. But that's what ends sort of the sexual, negotiated sexual act at that moment. And Mark says, look, man, I can't do it. And he says, sorry. And he gets out of the truck and he starts to leave. Immediately, some 18, 19, 20-year-old boys are in a truck right behind him, pull up immediately as it pull up beside the little mini truck as Walberg gets out, and the driver of the truck, who's obviously straight at this point, and the two guys or three guys out of the other truck get out and just start beating the crap out of Walberg, Dirk Diggler. It's 2 or 3 on 1. I think 3 on 1, if not 4 on 1. There may be 3 in the big pickup. No weapons, but still they're beating the hell out of him. And they're calling him homophobic slurs while they're doing it. Okay, so this is a little pseudo scientific thought experiment. It's a dark scene for anybody with a conscience that watched it. It's you feel awful. I mean, it's meant to show somebody who's down on their luck, which for the comparative part, you don't have to consider that. But it's meant to show how intolerant people will, in this case, physically assault. And they physically assaulted him Walberg because of the gay stuff he was selling, gay acts that he was selling. I mean, they're calling him the FAG word over and over as they're wailing on him. Now, if you watch that as a man or a woman, you come away. Everyone's going to come away with a little different type of empathy. Mostly, there may be a few percent in the world who don't have any empathy. There may be some other bigots who think, "Oh yeah, do it." But one of the videos I uploaded, a video I uploaded a week or so ago called "Tropes and Intolerances," I very amateurishly tried to use this as an explanation of what I'm trying to do, which is what I'm trying to overcome, the RMA. I'm trying to talk about, make awareness, prevent somebody from being raped is what I'm trying to do. And it was very awkward, me trying to use some academic literature on male rape by female. But I thought about it, and this is a good way to explain it. So with that scene in mind, there's people who are going to come away with a different point of view, even though it's a fictional movie. You could ask yourself, there's some kind of what if questions after you watch that scene, which is, okay, and again, for this, you can leave out the prostitute part. You can leave out the part of Walberg just being down on his luck and getting out of the truck. But you say, hypothetically, what if Walberg called the police? How many people in this country would believe that in a sort of, if that's a real scenario, and you think about how police would respond to that, how many people in society would believe that the police should respond to that? And should they take in all the information, the factual information in that scene, the hate part, the sex part, and there was no penetration in that scene. If anybody who's seen it remembers, or based on how I described it, there's just Mark touching himself, and the other guy's watching. But it's obviously a hate crime, and it's obviously is of a sexual, the predicate sort of act is of a sexual nature. So it's a hate motivated sex crime. And there's people who will think that if that's a real world scenario and it's somebody you know and love that was beaten up, you want them to call the police and the people and those kids arrested. Now, some who think, well, he's selling himself, so he's already in a crime, and so there's all that stuff. And I know those biases exist, and it's that scene is not like threading a needle. That's pretty clear. That Walberg deserves justice. He's been physically assaulted, and it's clear, and it's on video. But what happened to me, what Dusty did, is the exact same thing, only worse. Because in the Boogie Nights scene, there was no inanimate object that the driver of the truck used to penetrate any orifice of Walberg. And the truck driver is pretending to like what Walberg is doing in front of him as a ruse. And the ruse was so they could harm him afterwards. The physical part of the harm is only part of it. I don't want to say incidental, because I haven't worked that through. When I was thinking about how to make this video and how to describe it last night, I haven't fully thought through if that's incidental. The assault happened, and that is a act among other acts in that movie scene that may or may not be considered incidental. But there's crimes are based, and sentences particularly are based on trauma as a result of a crimes against a person crime. If there's more trauma, the sentence is larger. And so he's physically injured. blood's coming out. So those are factors that are taken into consideration when lawmakers make up sentences and sort of the theoretical and philosophical considerations that go on in how to do justice in certain situations, that being a situation. Well, the story I'm trying to tell is that happened 9 times, a ruse. On one night, well, all of them were on video, and it's pretty clear. And although I knew this in 2007 and 2008, and I wasn't quiet about it, but and I wouldn't have been able to explain how difficult I knew telling this story would be. Now it's like threading the impossible needle, and I know that. I knew it then. I didn't know scholarship on it, and I was screaming about the wrong thing. Dusty acted with other high school students, just like the kids pull up in the truck in that scene. It's the one guy who Walberg thinks is the only guy in this situation, and there's 3 guys watching from a few feet behind that pull up after Walberg's gets out, and they all beat him up. Well, it's the trauma that suffered from being beat up, the injuries, in that case to the physical self, but there's psychological trauma that in a real scenario like that occurs. Well, that happened to me, and it just threw me for a loop. I even called places like RAINN and told, sorry, you're a man. We don't help men. I called a rape crisis center in Dallas. Sorry, you'll have to come in and you'll have to sit in the lobby with other women who have been raped. Really? That's what you want to do? Called police, and they just didn't believe that a man can be raped, I guess. And I still, now 20 years later, after I've retired and I'm ready to, and I'm formally educated, I'm still not a good speaker, but the tropes and intolerances video was made to try to explain how that phenomenon still exists, the smallest needle in the world to thread, because that's a pretty serious thing. And if you just, as a thought experiment, assume I'm telling the truth, which would be a female tricked somebody into moving in with her and then doing those types of activities and more, because that wouldn't be aggravated, whatever the term is for aggravated assault. It wouldn't be full-on rape crime. Dusty's doing the rape crime, and the high school students are there too. And it's only for the purpose of bullying, in this case, me. It's been 18 years ago, so I had to figure out what RAINN would help me with and what the Dallas Rape Crisis Center would help me with on my own. But it's still there. It changes your life forever. Might not have changed the real life victim who Mark Walberg is playing, but because that's one time, it's sort of a transactional deal. But when it's methodically planned out, it's crazy. But it still happened, and there's video of it. That's another crazy part. Nobody really. So that's what I wanted to explain in this video, is that that Boogie Nights thing is a kind of a perfect example of what happened. Only it happened 9 times. And I talked about in, I think the last video, I gave a lot of details about May 21st, where it happened, and it was recorded. An hour and a half, 2 hours of it was. And there's videos for the 9 nights. Well, one of the things that Dusty, who's still around, could say is that, no, we were in a consensual sex type thing that was going on in all those tapes. Well, that's not true. I'm willing to test that in anywhere, a courthouse, anywhere. This is not something I can obviously share with the public. If it were legal, I might have a reconsideration on that, and if I could blur myself out, but I can't. So, and it's illegal, so I'm not. But the FBI has this in a weird way. They have all of it, and I've given them timestamps. But the other thing I wanted to add in this video is, I moved in with Dusty. Dusty asked me to move in December of 2005. I lived in Dallas. She lived in Rockwall. I moved in on the last load I made from Dallas to her house. And I remember I cheated. I was working for AT&T at the time, and I had an AT&T truck. I was a manager, so I had a manager's truck, no tool bed on the back. And I used the truck for the last load. Well, that was a huge no-no at the phone company. And I knew it. It's the only time I ever did something like that. But it was at 4 a.m. in the morning. I left Dallas probably at 3:30 a.m., my apartment. Got the last thing out, put it in the truck. And I had a personal car in the truck. So personal car is already, Dusty says, last load is, I'm also moving the truck, and I'm going to put things in the truck to move down to Rockwall. And I get there at 4 a.m. on Friday morning, February 17th. 44 hours later, Dusty has at least one high school kid behind a camcorder, moving it and following us on a bed. And there's a picture, a screenshot. I had up. I deleted it for a reason, but that I wasn't aware of. But that screenshot came from the FBI in a weird way, years ago. But the video still exists, and if you look at the date and the time, it's February 19th at about 4 a.m. Well, about 90 minutes before then, 2 hours before then, is when it was on. That camcorder was originally on a tripod in the hall, and as soon as Dusty and I are situated on the bed doing those sorts of Mark Walberg things, specifically because Dusty asked for them, somebody grabs the camcorder, and as we move across the bed, they move the camera. This is 2006, February, 44 hours after I moved in. Dusty will also say, well, she's denying that it happened. She's never seen, she has seen the video, all the videos once, I'm going to say. Because after every time we did this and recorded ourselves, she watched it. And I knew it. I've never talked about this, but she only watched it on the camcorder through the little, through this size screen. So this is, and she watched it to go back and make sure that nobody was caught. No high schooler that she invited in was caught on camera. So she knows they exist, but she doesn't know the mistakes they made. In fact, on that night, I don't know if she realized that the kid took it off the tripod and was moving it around. And so within 44 hours of me moving in, she does that. That might not be all things considered, many things I'm not sharing, but all things considered, that might not be provable as a hate crime. There's other videos I've made that explain some details that show why Dusty has said that what we were doing, even on February 19th, she didn't like, and she didn't find me attractive. And she's right about that, about the I'm not attractive. She's lying about the other. But if you take her, she's really not lying. She's lying to cover up a lie. That's what I mean. The needle of the thread, the eye of the needle I'm trying to thread with the story is just so small that I know it's next to impossible. But if it prevents one person from being raped, it's a success. And hopefully 1 million cops watch this, because I'm talking to y'all. You're the ones who are the fuck ups in this. Majority of the time, the academic literature supports this. You're the ones who ignore us. So Dusty tells the FBI about 2 years after that she what's going on that night, February 19th, she does not like. She also says that she didn't invite the high school kids over. And at the same time, she says that I wanted that. I wanted high school kids in there, or people in there. That's the craziest lie she told. And an FBI agent bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. She's got big boobs, by the way. You have to go watch the other video where I talk about her how she likes to show them off, among other things, to people in powerful positions. Weak men are her prey. Weak. So February 19th, 44 hours after I moved in, and then the last time it happened, I talked about in enough detail to explain what was going on in the last video, which was that on October 28th, and she calls me on that Saturday, October 28th, 2006, to say, hey, I want to come over and I want to do a big freak off night with you. Well, she only did that to not just bring her camcorder over and record us doing that, recording her basically saying, get in the cab of the truck. I want to do these weird sex things with you. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to bring a thing, black in color, phallus in shape, and that's going to be used in a way that meets the rape definition. And oh, by the way, FBI later on, I don't like that. And he writes it on 302. But she's calling and saying, let's do this big time tonight. And she brings her camcorder and a high school student standing right fucking behind her with their camcorder. And in one moment, she whispers, hey, pan that back over here. 9 times. Oh, and 2 nights there was a gun. So that's a crazy story to tell. It's a crazy eye of the needle to thread. I know that. I'm not very good at that. This channel is good faith. Those things happened. And even though I reported it to police, they were bigots. They didn't care. And so now I'm retired and I'm retelling this story. And I'm going to tell as many people as I can. And one last thing. I know I'm 26 minutes in, almost 27. I thought about justice again today because I don't know what justice is, what it looks like. Does it mean Dusty gets investigated and charged and convicted and sent to prison for 20 years for raping high school students? Because that's really, she's raping high school students. On the May 21st, it's on camera. Oral sex, anyway. But what does that look? What does justice look like? Socrates brought this question up 2,500 years ago in Athens, Greece, at the academy with the students. What is justice? And they don't define it. They spent a whole chapter and a half debating what justice is. It's in the Republic. It's the greatest book ever written. And between he and his students who are debating it, and they can't figure it out. I still can't. Nobody can. That happened. What do you do now? And I thought about that. I don't want money. I'm not going to sue her. I will sue her if she, in public, lies. Just like Eugene Carroll sued Trump, I'd do exactly the same thing. But I wouldn't ask for money. If I had to ask for money, I would consult with United Way and see if they wanted to participate and be the recipient of whatever an appropriate amount would be to cover the cost of the money that Dusty stole from a women's organization in women's charity called Women in Need in Rockwall. Dusty just outright stole from them. Go back and watch the other video. By the way, I said in the last video when I talked about the women in need offensiveness at a hearing, it sounds crass, some of the anecdotes that I tell about Dusty. Again, part of the almost impossible needle to thread. I know that it sounds crass, and I know it before I say it, and I know the reaction that people will get if they just don't know that she raped high school kids. She put P-Diddy to shame. P-Diddy is having freak-offs because he's sexually stimulated by the things that are going on at his house or a hotel or wherever he is. He's forcing people. There may be some violent acts that go on there, but there's also some just sort of psychological coercion that goes on, and that's basically what happens here. Tricking, rusing. Dusty she uses that. That's common, but P. Diddy really wanted to have sex with who's ever at that party. I also said that I was going to compare this with Larry Nassar, the doctor who tricked all those victims, 500 or more victims of that he sexually assaulted. Well, Larry Nassar, he wasn't motivated by hate. He really was stimulated by whoever his victims were. And to him, it was sexual gratification. To P-Diddy, it was sexual gratification. To Dusty, it wasn't sexually satisfying. And she swore to an FBI agent that it wasn't. Now she'll say, well, it was because I'm wanting her to do those things. No, she talks me into it. It's on the video. But even if I ask her to do something in a consensual way, but she doesn't like it, she consents in the moment, and it's because something I suggested. I said, hey, let's do this. And she says, okay. And then we do it. And then she records me with a camcorder, and she invites high school kids in behind her to say, look what we have this fucking idiot. We can make this guy do. That's what it was. And it wasn't the first time she was having sex with high school students with me, according to her. It's a bizarre story. You'll have to go see it, watching the video unless I tell it again. But P-Diddy wanted to have sex with the people that came over to his party. Dusty not only told the FBI that she didn't want to do those things, that nobody was there, but that he wanted to do those things. But even though she's said that, she on the October 28th incident, it's very clear that she's bringing someone over with a second video camera because they're bullying me. They're the truck driver. They're the guy driving the truck and the guy in the truck behind the little truck, and doing it because of the sort of the gay homosexual overtones that are going on, and they're making fun of that. So really, it's not me. It's their intolerance of that they're making fun of. She's the alpha mean girl type. She talked about that. So that's a small needle to thread. As I said, the FBI has the tapes. I only kind of bring up the FBI, or I started to, because she started tagging FBI agents. I don't know if that was by accident, because they've got the evidence. And so she might not have realized that part when she started tagging him. She started tagging because I started back trying to bring awareness to what happened, which includes her name. Sorry, it's my story and it happened to me. I have a First Amendment right to tell it. Now, I started to say about the women in need, her taking money from women in need. For 18 years, every 2 weeks, I donated money to United Way, leading up to 2007. Not a ton, but probably a healthy amount for somebody who made the amount of money I did. It was a percentage, and I worked for the phone company, Southwestern Bell Telephone, and SBC, and AT&T, and I even volunteered to run some campaigns for them in the last 8 years, internal campaigns where I'd go around and solicit more and bigger donations, so I'd given to United Way. So when I say, I know that some of the things I say may sound crass, like when she walks in and she's lying and she's got volunteers behind her. I know for a fact the reasons the volunteers are there is a lie. I know that she's trying to cover up raping high school students. That's the thing that should matter to the community there. So it's offensive to me, not just because of that, but I'd given money to United Way for 18 years leading up to that point. And the United Way, Women in Need is, if I remember correctly, maybe almost fully funded through United Way of Dallas, of Greater Dallas. But I also gave to Big Brothers and Big Sisters of North Texas for the last 8 years. I gave time. Every year we did a bowling donation run campaign. And after I became a manager at the phone company, every year the phone company solicits donations from its employees. And at that time they had 175,000 employees. So in Dallas, they had 10,000 employees. And when I became a manager, it's one of the things that sort of the second line manager has a staff meeting once a year and says, okay, it's United Way or Big Brothers and Big Sisters campaign drive time. I'm going to assign the campaign legwork to you. And everybody dreaded it for the first year or two I was a manager. It's like they'd hide their face. everybody donated, but they, it's more work on top of what they already have. I recognized, if not by the third year, by the second year, hey, that's something I want to do. So every year after that, I'm like, right here, that's me. On both United Way and Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So I would be the one to go around. There's 10,000 phone company employees in the Dallas metro area. So this is a big deal. Or it's a big in size. And it's important. But I was proud of that. I felt good about it. That's what charitable stuff does to people. And that's why we do it, because it makes, if you believe Dale Carnegie, the 1950s, he wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People. He's sort of a pseudoscientist, but he did say in that book, everything everybody does is for the self first. And as long as everybody's doing for the self in a good way, it's okay to be selfish in that regard. I wrote academic papers on this. Ethical egoism is one of the papers I wrote. But I enjoyed it, and it was extra work. You had to get up real early, because you had to, no telling what office you'd have to go to in order to give up, beg for money. So with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, that was not a donation, but it was we'd do a bowling alley once a year, and people would be sponsored and that kind of deal, like a walk. And the last year I did it, 2006, I took Dusty. I got a picture of it somewhere. It's molded, but I got a picture of Dusty. In that year, I happened to be the highest out of about 2,000 people. I was the highest donations gatherer, whatever. I brought in the most money. And Dusty was part of that celebration. I am picture taken. I don't know if we won the bowling tournament. Didn't matter. But there's something funny about this. I didn't intend to tell this, but I heard about, as I said, Dusty's daughter, Reagan Coursey. I lived with them for a year in Rockwall when Reagan was about 18 months old. So I know that little brat. And I only say that in a respectful, funny way, because she was a brat. But I don't watch anything Reagan makes for a couple of reasons. I didn't even know she had 4 million followers, of which I think 99% are fake. But I didn't know that until about 6 months ago. Then I accidentally discovered it, and I decided to watch somehow, I don't know how I searched or where, but I decided to watch a H3 Ethan Klein podcast that was covering a pretend scandal she had about a cat, and whether or not it was truthful is how Ethan and his wife are approaching the potentiality of a scandal. And so they start to review videos or content of Reagan. They're going to logically analyze the life of Reagan. And the first time I tried watching it, it's pretty long. I probably only watched 30 minutes of it. But there was something in it that I was looking for a couple of days ago, and went back to try and watch it, and got about 10 minutes in and fell asleep. But there was I didn't find what I was looking for, but there was something Ethan says. My eyes are closed. I'm looking away from the TV. It's in the afternoon. I'm trying to get an afternoon nap. That's what you do when you're retired. And he said something that was funny. It reminded me of the Big Brothers and Big Sisters bowling tournament, whatever, fundraiser in Grand Prairie. Had a huge bowling alley. Ethan says, "Okay, well, let's start. There's Reagan. She's dancing. Wait," he says, "Wait, something doesn't add up. She doesn't look like she looks completely disinterested or unmotivated. She's not selling her dance." That may be hereditary. This is not a slight on Reagan, but I know that look. I remember when I first watched that video and Ethan saying that, I probably was looking at the TV. I don't remember if I was looking at Reagan, but I didn't have to. I know her mom. At that bowling alley, I just distinctly remember this is how Dusty bowled. She would, how some people get really animated in their walk up to best bowler ever, right there. So, some people get really animated. Hell, to Jesus. He's got that whole ceremonial thing, and he throws the ball and he licks them, all that. Well, amateur bowlers who bowl once a year, like me, or once every 5 years, we, even though we try, we don't, we may be a little reserved, like sort of think Reagan not selling her dance. which is really kind of I'm too cool to do this. So I'm not going to kind of bare my soul for the embarrassment in case I do something embarrassing. Well, that's exactly how Dusty tried. We threw a bowling ball. It was just so pronounced. This is not necessarily a slight. It's just sort of a ironic coincidence between, I guess, Reagan and Dusty. I'll tell you, at the time and after I discovered everything Dusty did, it was so distinct that I remembered that for months and months and years later. I remember it to this day, but it was something I considered in 2000, 2008. When you're trying to evaluate, is this person a complete and non-empathetic sociopath? Because the way Dusty would walk up and just release the ball, no animation, no seriousness, and as if she's what's the right way to put it? Bowling among these peasants, even though we're in Grand Prairie, leave that part out because Grand Prairie's got its own reputation. But Dusty is not a gold class citizen anyway. I mean, she'd be in the bronze. Speaking of Socrates, but it's like I'm bored. I'm disinterested. I'm better than Mean Girls. I mean, it's like if your hypothetical meanest alpha girl in the world, sociopathic, who was that way throughout her whole life, went bowling with common, normal people who like to help big brothers and big sisters. It's a charity. Dusty's just interested in the whole fucking thing. It's just why am I here? And that is the theme of Dusty in every video for the next 9 months. Some of it's very obvious, where she's talking to and making facial expressions with the high school kids who were there. So there's no doubt. I can't swear that general attitude towards, look, I'm a bully, I'm dressed in all these clothes, and I'm doing this to this idiot sexually. That expression that she has every night, I can't swear that ties in with her same expression when she bowls, and not just expression of it, lack of any oomph when she walks up and throws the ball. It's just blatant. It's bizarre. That was weird. But I've given to charity. Normal people give to charity, so I'm not tooting my own horn or what's it called, virtue signaling. I'm only telling it because it, as I said, when I tell that story, like in the last video, and it's about, there was also part of it where she's coming in on crutches. So there was sort of that natural, she's already drawing implicit empathy from everybody in the room because she's injured. She's also at a alleged domestic violence hearing. She's the victim, and here comes 2 volunteers from Women in Need. Well, in that room at that moment, she and I know the truth. And at that moment, on that day, I don't yet know she's invited high school kids in. She does. So when I say to retell a story like that, it may sound crass. I know that. And I'm not asking for any, look at what she did to this person, Scott Wilhite. I tried that in 2007, and it didn't work then. It'll never work. Or it won't in my lifetime, and that's okay. She did do it to high school students, and high school students, minors, can't consent. These are some of the bizarre things she did along the way. So again, I know those it can sound like I'm kind of making misogynistic or bad blood type of things. Yes, there's bad blood, but there's bad blood like one of the 500 victims of Larry Nassar would have, or one of the victims who's been testifying in the P-Diddy freak-off trial. There's that kind of bad blood. And hopefully you'll stick around for this. But gosh, I'm 44 minutes in. Wow. Something to think about. All right. See you later.